Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be doing something incredibly fascinating today. We're actually diving into two totally different, gripping parallel folktales to see what kind of shared DNA we can uncover. On one hand, we've got this deeply moving human story about two hardworking railway porters. And on the other, a vibrant jungle tale about birds bracing for the monsoon season. Now, I know what you're thinking. These sound worlds apart, right? But they actually both revolve around a super powerful, universal human desire: the need for shelter. So let's just jump right in and see how these stories weave together to teach us a little something about life, loyalty, and the absolute true cost of taking a shortcut.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want you to really think about something. What actually makes a house a true home? Is it just, bricks and mortar and branches? Or does it need a much deeper foundation, something built on absolute honesty, hard work, and unbreakable loyalty? And really, if you were pushed to the absolute brink, how much would you risk just to get a roof over your head? Keep that in the back of your mind as we go, because the characters we're looking at today are going to be pushed to their absolute limits to figure that out.
All right, so let's meet our protagonists. In one corner, we have Gotia and Motia. These guys are inseparable friends, working as railway porters. You'd recognize them by the red claws wrapped around their heads. Day in and day out, through blazing heat and freezing cold, they're out there carrying luggage, sharing laughs, and holding on to this one beautiful dream: to save up enough cash for a real brick house. And honestly, through sheer grit, they actually managed to save 80,000 rupees. That's huge. Meanwhile, deep in the jungle, we're following two pairs of birds. You've got Lotto and Balu, who are the super hard-working couple expecting their first babies. And then there's Bura and Rima, who have, well, a very different dynamic. But all of them are locked in this desperate race against nature to build safe nests before the brutal rains hit.
Now, every good story needs a ticking clock, right? And both of these narratives introduce a terrifying amount of pressure. In the human world, the usually cheerful Motia suddenly falls terribly ill. He gets a severe lung infection, his breathing becomes labored, and despite all the treatments, he just isn't getting any better. His whole personality shifts, he becomes irritable and withdrawn, and at the exact same time, over in the jungle, the skies are literally darkening. A violent, unrelenting rainy season is fast approaching. So in both worlds, the pressure is just suffocating, and it's starting to push our characters toward decisions they normally wouldn't ever make.
And boy, does that pressure build up, especially for Rima in the jungle. For seasons now, she's been fed these totally empty promises by her incredibly lazy husband, Bura. Like back in the freezing winter, he swore he'd build her a sturdy house. Well, winter passed. Then came the scorching summer, and Bura just made excuses, telling her, oh, living out in the open air is actually better. Yeah, right. Now the torrential rain is here. Rima is soaked, she's watching all the other birds enjoy their nice dry homes, and she is finally fed up. She packs her bags for her mother's house and drops a massive ultimatum. Bura has exactly 4 days to build a real home, or she is gone for good.
So, switching back to our human story, a sick and desperate Motia thinks he's just stumbled onto a miracle. He meets this guy near the station who claims to be a real estate broker. And get this, the guy is offering a 1 BHK flat right near the railway quarters for a token of exactly 80,000 rupees. Motia is absolutely thrilled. It's the first time his eyes have lit up in months. But his buddy Gotia, he immediately smells a rat. The broker's words are just a little too sweet, he won't make eye contact, and conveniently, he has zero paperwork. When Motia gets defensive, Gotia drops this powerful line: I don't want to hand over our dream to a fraudster. He just knows that blindly trusting this slick talker is going to destroy everything they've worked for.
It's actually wild how similarly deception operates in both of these stories. If you look at the breakdown here, in the human world, the fate broker is promising the super quick, easy path to a 1 BHK home. And in the jungle, faced with that 4-day deadline, lazy Bura promises Rima a brand new super strong nest. But the reality? Far darker. Neither of these guys has any intention of actually doing the hard work. The fake broker is fully planning to just vanish with that hard-earned 80,000 rupees. And Bura, instead of building his own place, he's just watching his neighbor Balu build a beautiful new nest for his growing family, and he's secretly scheming to just steal it.
Which brings us to a really heartbreaking moment. Motia, who is just so frustrated by Gotia's warnings and utterly desperate to get this house, completely loses his temper. In a blind flash of anger, he literally snatches their entire life savings right out of Gotia's hands and shoves it into the broker's arms. The broker, obviously thrilled that his little manipulation worked perfectly, just smirks and goes, this is called being truly smart. Don't worry, your money will be very safe. Then he turns around and walks away. In mere seconds, years and years of grueling, back-breaking labor are just handed over to a total phantom,
And from there, we see a complete cascade of disaster. It's like a domino effect. Step 1, the terrible decision. Motia handing over the cash and Bora sneaking his wife into Balu's new nest under false pretenses. Then comes step 2, the catalyst. Motia wakes up the next morning feeling even sicker and tries to call the broker. While out in the jungle, a brutal, terrifying midnight thunderstorm rolls in, and that leads right into step 3, the absolute breaking point. Gotia and Motia dial the number, only to hear an automated voice saying it's out of service. The broker is gone. At the exact same time, that stolen nest in the jungle is violently tested by the howling storm.
This is where the absolute cruelty of Deceit really peaks. Picture this, it's midnight in the jungle, the wind is just howling, and Balu and his pregnant wife Lato's old nest is literally falling apart in the storm. So they bravely fly through this freezing torrential rain to get to the new, safe nest that Balu just finished building. But when they get there, the door is locked from the inside. Bora and Rima step out. Now Rima genuinely believes Bora built this for her, because he lied to her. So together they coldly kick the rightful owners, remember Lato's pregnant, out into this freezing, dangerous storm, literally threatening to beat them if they don't leave. It's just brutal.
Back in the human world, the realization that they've been scammed just completely breaks Motia. He goes back to their small hut, and the whole truth just spills out. Through tears, he admits to Gotia that he wasn't just rushing out of greed, he was terrified. A doctor had secretly told him months ago that his lung infection was actually fatal. He knew he was dying. His desperation to buy the house was this frantic last-ditch effort to fulfill their shared dream before his time ran out. He just wanted to leave Gotia with a home. But instead, his rushed judgment ruined the whole thing.
You know, when you lose your home, you naturally look to your community for help. But the jungle's reaction is, well, it's mixed. You've got neighbors like Kalu and Gori who just completely refuse to help, giving these flimsy excuses about having family over and having absolutely no space. But then you see true grace from Minumasi. This kind auntie bird opens her door without a second of hesitation. She welcomes this soaking wet, terrified couple inside, gives them a warm place to rest, pours them some hot tea, and rightfully calls out Bora for his awful actions. It's a real contrast in how people react to a crisis.
But, karma always has a way of balancing the scales, doesn't it? This storm doesn't just test the birds, it tests the actual integrity of that stolen nest. Because Bora didn't build it himself, he had no idea how to maintain it or anchor it against those violent winds. So right in the middle of the night, nature delivers some harsh justice. The storm completely rips apart the stolen nest, sending it crashing to the ground. Bora and Rima are caught in the collapse, severely injured, and end up having to go to Dr. Owl's clinic. It just goes to show, foundations built on lies, they simply cannot weather the storm.
Now, I want you to think about this. How would you respond if your best friend literally threw away your entire life's savings? Godia's reaction is just incredible. After Motia's tearful confession about dying and losing the 80 grand, Godia doesn't yell, he doesn't hit his friend, he just offers pure, unadulterated grace. He looks at Motia and says, look, what's done is done. You did it for both of us. He tells him to stop blaming himself, says they'll hunt down the scammer later, and most importantly, he tells his dying friend, I am with you. It is just a breathtaking display of true loyalty mattering so much more than material wealth.
Okay, so the storm passes, the dust settles, and it's time to rebuild from the ruins. Over at the jungle clinic, a heavily bandaged Bora finally apologizes, and Rima learns the actual truth about the nest. And good for her, she sticks to her boundaries. She heads off to her mother's house, making it crystal clear she is not coming back until Bora learns the value of honest labor. Meanwhile, back with our porters, Gontia takes charge. He forces a very sick Motia to stay home and rest. And then, Gontia starts working in secret, day and night, carrying insanely heavy sacks at the station and boxes in the market, pushing his body to the absolute physical limit just to fix his friend's mistake.
Fast forward 2 months later, and out of those ruins, we see this incredible rebuilding. Godia brings Motia out to this empty field near the station, and standing right there is a magnificent, sturdy, 3-story hut. Godia built the whole thing entirely with his own 2 hands, working through the night. He tells a super emotional Motia that, hey, it might not be made of brick, but it is as strong as their friendship. And back over in the jungle, Ladu safely lays her beautiful eggs in Minyu Mausi's house. Eventually, a healed-up Bora finally learns his lesson, and both he and Balu build genuine, strong leaf houses with their own honest effort. The community is fully restored.
All right, let's bring this all together. Looking at the overarching themes here, the shared moral DNA of these 2 folktales is super clear. Number 1, patience is always safer than a perilous shortcut. Rushing out of desperation just paints a giant target on your back for scammers. Number 2, True friends forgive and they rebuild together, exactly like Gaudia did for Modi. Number 3. Deception always crumbles under pressure. A stolen nest or a fake 1 BHK promise? They're not going to survive the actual storms of life. And finally, a true home is built on love and honest effort, not just raw materials. Gaudia's handmade hut was 1,000,000 times better than that fake apartment ever could have been.
So I really want to leave you with this one final thought today. We spend so much of our lives, don't we, chasing the perfect house, the perfect savings account, or, the quickest possible shortcut to success. But as these stories beautifully illustrate, the storms of life, they are inevitable. And when they finally hit, it isn't the bricks or the leaves that are going to save you. It's the foundation of the relationships you've built. So ask yourself, if your world came crashing down tonight, who would be your Gaudia? Who would stand right beside you to rebuild it tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you something truly meaningful to chew on.